If you could only hear what I hear. Well, whatever you're hearing, folks, hopefully it's better than what was heard in The Unheard, a Shudder original, directed by Jeffrey A. Brown, who's done shorts, as well as a movie called The Beach House. I remember reviewing The Beach House. It had a couple neat little ideas. That's about all I remember. It was written by the Rasmussen brothers, Michael and Sean, who did The Ward with Amber Heard back before we realized that Amber Heard is a goddamn nutcase. And also Crawl, the gator flick that had Barry Pepper of The Green Mile in it. You know, he was the injured guy, and his daughter had to help him through a massive flooding that also had a gator in it. It was actually pretty good. There was another one from Australia that came out that same year that wasn't all that good because it involved a bunch of idiots. Speaking of which, this movie is populated by characters that are complete goddamn idiots. I'm kind of tipping my hand already as to how I felt about this movie, and I'm disappointed because it had a couple good ideas. Actually, it had a few different things that it could have explored during its 125-minute runtime when it had enough material for about 85 to 90 minutes of that. So it stars Lachlan Watson, who was in the Sabrina Netflix series I still need to check out. She plays Chloe, a young girl that lost her hearing during a medical issue, and she has not been able to communicate with her mother because her mother disappeared during the time that she was sick. And since she lost her hearing, I mean, it's like very, very, very muffled. I mean, so she has hearing aids to help, but she has decided, I want to go get this experimental procedure done. Okay, it's going to be like Jessica Alba's The Eye. Thankfully not. There's actually attempts at acting in this, unlike Jessica Alba in The Eye. But Lachlan Watson ends up going to see this doctor, Dr. Lynch, whose name I'm going to attempt to pronounce, Shafari Ramathan. And if I mispronounce that at all, I do want to apologize. She is doing this experimental procedure where it's going to be gene therapy to work on the damaged tissue and the affected tissues in the ears, ear canal, all that stuff, all the hearing, all the hearing links and everything in there are going to be fixed with this experimental procedure. Gene therapy and everything. And as a side effect, the sharks got smarter. Wait, no, that was Deep Blue Sea. In all seriousness, the procedure eventually does work. And then Chloe decides to go back to an old family house in Cape Cod. And she's going to help her dad sell it. Her dad, who we never see, by the way. That is a bit of a spoiler right there. We hear him on the phone. We see stuff via text. And I do want to say that one thing this movie does get right is how, hearing loss of, losing one sense can really affect somebody. You get used to it, you adapt to it, but it can be very, very frustrating. And when the procedure does eventually work, whether it's like being able to see better or being able to, taste better or, smell or being able to hear. When you're able to like suddenly have something back that you had when you were younger and you have adapted to, not having it as much, it can be a bit jarring. And she's dealing with she's dealing with a lot of like, oh God, I have my hearing back. It's great. And then unfortunately there are side effects. Like she's worried that she's suffering from some sort of series of hallucinations because it seems like her mom's trying to communicate with her. Her mom who disappeared. And also there's a bunch of missing women going on, and like that's been going on in this particular area, and there are a few possible suspects and everything. And this movie, I'm just going to say right now, this movie reminded me a bit of this. And not entirely, because Lady in White actually had star power, and I'm not even knocking the cast here. Actually, I think that the cast did the best they could. It's just that when you're trying to take a movie that has this central idea and take it in a few different directions, and you have a beefy runtime like this, and you fail to execute it, it gets very frustrating. And that is the thing about this movie. This movie gets very frustrating because it's very easy to figure out where this movie's going almost within the first 30 to 35 minutes. And that's fine. Predictability isn't necessarily an automatic stamp of failure. But the movie doesn't do anything to deviate from that path, and anytime it tries to introduce characters or say, oh no, we're not actually trying to go on this linear path, we're trying to go over here. Oh no, we are here. You were fools to believe that we were going to do something wholly original. Having your hearing back and hearing ghosts or hearing all this stuff and maybe thinking that it's all in your head That can be something neat. The movie, unfortunately, doesn't really capitalize on that. And goes back in unfamiliar tropes where these are talented writers. Crawl maybe wasn't, the beefiest writing, as far as dialogue and everything, but it had a neat little story and had some good action in it. The Ward had a couple neat little ideas. So, The Beach House. The execution is fucking terrible. I'm sorry. Fucking terrible. And by the time they get to the conclusion that almost everybody on the goddamn earth would have been able to see coming on, it tries to be like, oh, shocking. It's not fucking shocking. It's not shocking at all. It's on Shudder if you want to check it out. I'm going to get into spoilers here. I mean, there's really not much to it. Again, it's just basically it has some tropes from Lady in White. That's about it. It's not a carbon copy until later on. But anyway, I'm going to get into spoilers just so you know. It's on Shudder. Check it out. Shudder is a great streaming service. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. Okay, so Chloe can communicate with the doctor via via texting and everything until she regains her hearing. She goes through all this, talks to her dad. She's helping fix up this house so they can sell it. She starts hearing weird noises. There's all these VHS tapes that show her mother. Her mother keeps saying Happy 4th of July, all this. Because it's these family party things. Also, there's this character named Joshua that was played by Brendan Meyer, who is a childhood friend that may be a little fucked up in the head himself. There's also a family friend named Hank that the dad sends, that he's known the family for years. He's always been good to them. Hey, Chloe, I remember you when you were really high and everything, and yeah, it was terrible when your mother disappeared, and don't worry about these missing people. I'm clearly not the killer. He's a fucking killer. Of course he's a fucking killer. Because this movie doesn't bother to even do anything original. Let's just take the idea that a family friend is a killer. Hooray! The more I thought about this movie, the more pissed off I got. You know, want to know the precise moment that this movie lost me? It was around the time that Hank was talking to Chloe about, oh, don't worry about associating with that guy Joshua. You shouldn't, because he's messed up. That family's messed up. They're clearly messed up. I'm a former police officer, and then somebody ended up, causing me to have an early retirement, medals and all. And don't worry, I'm clearly not the goddamn killer. Why would you think that? So yeah, some girl before this gets, kidnapped, trapped in a car. He says shh, and then slices her throat with a box cutter. That is all that we get. And then people are disappearing. Well, women have disappeared over time, including Chloe's mom. Chloe keeps hearing this weird stuff that's ringing in her ears. And it turns out that she lied during her filling out her paperwork. If you took any drugs, you were supposed to say yes. She didn't. She takes antidepressants because she was in a coma for metameningitis. Sorry, the Super Mario Brothers theme, underground theme pops in my head when I hear that. And she ends up maybe, having some side effects and everything. At one point, she calls the doctor. The doctor comes over. The doctor and her talk. They go out to dinner. There's almost an implied romance. Out of nowhere. That was never explored again, by the way. The doctor completely disappears out of this whole damn thing. Maybe Hank killed her. Maybe she got assumed into heaven. I have to go. Another planet needs me to fix their hearing. Doctor's beautiful, by the way. She's, God, beautiful actress. Put her in more stuff, please. And then she's hearing the ringing. She passes out. And Joshua, meanwhile, lives near the house. And him and his family take care of this because it's a vacation area and everything around the lake. So they're taking care of the house. He likes to, mess with animals. Not that way. He likes to take roadkill and experiment with them, perhaps. And that was said by Hank earlier. But, of course, Joshua's not the goddamn killer, because that's too goddamn obvious. Then she has kind of an episode, so to speak. And it turns out that she passes out. And then Hank shows up and has her at his house. And clearly is the killer. Obviously the killer. This movie needed about 30 minutes cut off of it. And the thing is it would have just been as incoherent and, whatever. But at least it would have been shorter, and I wouldn't have had to have dealt with it as much. So, is the tea drugged? We don't know, because she ends up pretending to be sick and escapes through the window and then escapes out. They were literally filming night for night here. It sounded like a nice nighttime scene. Sure wish I could have seen it. And then she gets back to her house. Hank attacks her. Meanwhile, she's been watching all these VHS tapes of these family movies, and her mother's been trying to get her to listen, because Hank killed the mother. And we see that through these tapes that are finally becoming clearer. And then Joshua shows up and gets stabbed repeatedly. And then she stabs Hank and kills him. No ghost drags a person away or knocks him off a goddamn cliff. That would have actually been funny. It would have been like Lady in White, and it would have been funnier. Chloe, say Happy 4th of July. And then she says Happy 4th of July, and that ends. The more I think about this, the more I'm upset about the wasted potential of the Unheard. Because again, pretty good idea. Even a couple pretty good ideas. Not wholly original, but they could be explored well in a serious yet at times entertaining fashion. No, this just ends up like most of the cast is on a bunch of Quaaludes. Some good talent here, even if they aren't people that a lot of people have necessarily heard of. There's some good talent here, but the characters are poorly written and is poorly executed from a directorial standpoint and everything. So, yeah, the Unheard gets an F. Sorry, it gets an F. It sucked. It really sucked. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.